Aloha, this is Hope Johnson with Wisdom Dialogues. Today is November 30th, 2016. I'm here with my son, Braun. You might see him from time to time. So, before I begin, I'd like to say that nothing I say is actually true, just to start off like that. All the words are pointers, and the guru is you. So the truth isn't going to be found in the words, and you don't have any homework. Just listen and breathe and ask questions if you like, and enjoy. Thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or write in a question, and I will get to them. I usually take all the questions. Can't foresee running out of time, but who knows. And no one who's with me right now has a question right now. I'll just start with the first question I have in writing here. How does one deal with the perception of being lectured by others for their choices? I don't feel guilty, but being harangued feels unpleasant. Okay. The perception of being lectured. Okay, for one, no one lectures another person. It's not really like that. Whatever is coming out of their mouth is actually for them. They're saying it for themselves to hear. And if it sounds like something that is a projection of guilt or shame or anything like that, it's sort of like they're looking for love, looking for acceptance. So in my experience, when I have somebody come up to me and say, hey, you should have done it like this, or you should be more like this, or what you did really hurt my feelings, or anything like that. It's just a matter of sort of allowing myself to feel whatever it is they're feeling. What normally happens when there's an identification as a person who's being lectured is a defensiveness comes up. It's kind of like, stop, I don't want that. And so then there's just defensive thoughts happening, and we get lost in our own projections. So it's like two projections going back and forth. And when we open up instead and just let that feeling be shared, whatever that is, just let it be embraced in the body, what comes out is just acceptance. It's just a loving experience. It's allowing that person to express whatever it is that's coming up for them and feeling with them. In a way, it's experienced like feeling for them, because it's almost like there's this projection coming out because a feeling hasn't been allowed. So when that feeling is allowed in our own energy body, that energy can be diffused. And it's actually, it's all the same mind. So where there's resistance in one microcosm of awareness, let's talk about it like that, because it seems like there's these separate people, but it's really one, and with different microcosms of awareness. So where the thought patterns are such that there's an unwillingness to feel, then whatever feeling is arising automatically gets projected. So it's like, you did this to me, and how can you be like that, and you should do it different. So when there's just a willingness to feel whatever that person is feeling, which basically comes up in our own energy bodies. It's like a dance, and so we can sense it. We can really sense each other if we allow that. It just dissolves. That's what I notice. In my own experience, a lot of the times there's just gratitude. It's like, okay, well, thank you for letting me know. Um, like that. And not a defensiveness, not an explaining or anything. Just kind of like thanking and loving. And the second part of this, I don't feel guilty, but being harangued feels unpleasant. Okay, so any guilty feeling or any unpleasant feeling is actually it's a reflection of guilt. So that's one way the subconscious mind is showing us what we believe to be true, and that may be an unconscious belief because it's the way our mind has been conditioned. And a lot of the times we're really blind to it until it comes up as an unpleasant feeling. So if it feels unpleasant, it is guilt. It's not no need to identify it. Just to feel the feeling and let your awareness just show you the way. Because awareness does show the way if there's just a willingness to be with whatever arises, to be that unpleasant feeling. But when it's projected again in thought that the unpleasant feeling is because of another person lecturing, then that's not the willingness to feel the feeling. That's willingness to be a disciple of whatever the mind is saying about the feeling. And that's the difference. And that's where those kinds of dances just don't really happen. Like in my experience, I can say that if someone comes up and it might appear that they're lecturing me, it's just not seen that way. It's not taken that way. So it's not danced with in that manner. It's just met with gratitude. And then people usually feel good about that, being heard. Being in the space of just being heard without any argument. Of course, there's never anything to argue about. Okay, if anyone has any questions about that or would like to talk about that anymore, being lectured, feeling harangued, please raise your hand or write something to me. Otherwise, I'm moving on to the next question. How can I know what I'm doing right or wrong if I don't have a guilty consciousness? Doesn't that twinge of guilt help us know what we can do better next time? This is some very deeply ingrained conditioning, obviously. It seems really important to have that guilty consciousness so we don't do wrong. And, I've heard people describe it as, when you see yourself as being disrespectful to someone and then later on feel guilt, maybe you won't act disrespectful the next time. And that's a very common belief. It's not one bit true. It's really interesting because the more we try to control ourselves that way as to not being disrespectful and stuff like that, disrespect is just a reflection of fear. And believing that we need guilty consciousness is pretty darn fearful. So that kind of stuff is just going to project outward because it comes from a guilty consciousness. It seems like a guilty consciousness might be useful to help us act right, but that's why so many people experience, really nice people experience themselves all of a sudden just becoming, all of a sudden an attack just comes out, and you're like, what? What was that? That's because we can't control ourselves like that. It's not possible to take a guilty consciousness as something that's useful and not project guilt, not project fear. And basically the world is all made of concepts. the underlying concept of which is guilt. And that's why there's so many perceptions of duality. So many perceptions of violence and greed and all those other things, because it's all made of concepts. And all it takes is seeing that the concept is untrue. But what happens is more thoughts add on to it to say why a guilty consciousness is good. Hey, that feeling of guilt made it so that next time I'm going to do da-da-da-da-da. Will you really? How do you know? The thing is, we can know the future if we're loving now. And loving now is only a matter of seeing what denies love, what denies who we are. Everything we do, everything we perceive, and everything we do is just concepts manifesting. So, no, guilt isn't helpful. Except for the seeing through it, feeling it with awareness that it's impossible. And that's how the impossibility of it is revealed. Simple, really, really simple. If anyone has any questions about that, please raise your hand. Alrighty then, moving on. How can I feel connected to my source at all times? And why does it feel so painful when I'm not connected? Okay, how can I feel connected to my source? Well, you are the source. We are the source. So what's trying to get connected to the source is an illusion. It's an illusion that's being perceived right now. It's an illusion that's arising within you, the source. So that feeling of connected to the source is only an illusion. It comes and goes. What's aware of the illusion of being connected that comes and goes is you. Totally unchanging and unchangeable. So not feeling connected to the source is a feeling, just like feeling connected to the source is also a feeling. There's nothing to do but allow those feelings to arise and fall away. They come and go. Let them come and go. You're always the space where these feelings come and go. But when there's an attachment to a certain kind of feeling and resistance to the other feeling, then there's identification. Then there's struggling. The struggle is dropped when the attention is directed back to the one who's watching the comings and goings. The feeling of connectedness and the feeling of not connected. Why does it feel so painful when I'm not connected? Because there's no such thing as being not connected. It's all you. It's all a representation. There's no such thing as being not connected. So basically that thought that says I'm not connected hurts. That's not true. Anything that feels painful, it's just an untrue thought.
What?
Nothing. Just loving you up.
There's a bar. This was in the way.
Hmm.
Had to get that out of the way.
Lori.
Hi
Aloha,
there.
Lori.
Aloha. Um, so you were saying anything that's painful is an untrue thought. So I have a life situation where
Uh-huh.
someone that I thought was a very close Facebook friend, at which I've met,
Mhm.
been to his house a
Mhm.
couple of times, and everything was fine. Well, he was coming up here
Okay.
soon to see to sell his wares to the ski resorts around here. And
Uh-huh.
he has been telling other people that have been telling me that he
Uh-huh.
doesn't know if he can handle me, my laughter, my voice, my
Okay.
yeah. And then that's opened up a whole other someone else came out of the woodwork and told me even more stuff. I've heard so much stuff from 4 different women about him taking advantage of them, which I know in reality nobody can take advantage of anybody, but to the tune of a lot of money.
Oh, fun.
Yes. And he has done some things that were very questionable with me in the past 6 months, and
Okay.
I've just let it go. But I
Uh-huh.
don't know if this is the universe saying, "Look, Lori, you you don't need to have him at your house," or I'm such a wreck over this. It's
Okay, well, that's just because you're trying to figure it out.
yes,
And there's nothing to figure out. All it's only to be felt. See, that's how the ego will rise and wrangle you into some worldly ideas.
okay,
Like there's something that you need to do. The decisions will come on their own. All there is to do is in this moment feel whatever it is that's coming up. That's all.
that's it.
If you're racing around and thought about it, then that's not going to be helpful. And it doesn't even matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you're inviting them over to your house or not, because remember, you don't even have a choice.
Mm,
See how the idea when something like this comes up, the idea that you have a choice now arises and becomes true for you.
right, right.
See that? You don't have a choice. And every single thing like this is an opportunity for forgiveness. And when I say forgiveness, I'm talking about forgiveness of that guilty consciousness. Because remember that everything is arising out of ourselves. Like everything we perceive is actually arising through our energy body. It's coming from the subconscious mind and coming right through our energy body and projecting outward. So we could actually feel what's going on right within our
Right.
energy body.
You
Like,
feel it. Yes.
you can feel that.
Mm.
And that's really all there is to do. And when the fear around it has been felt and dealt with at that level, everything about it actually becomes playful.
Oh,
There's nothing you can't play with and have fun with. Absolutely nothing.
wow. Because it feels so heavy, the whole thing.
Yes. Well, that's it. That's the way ego or energy of fear keeps you feeding that individual sense of self.
Mm.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is this is like the real life opportunity to dissolve that sense of separation.
Mm.
This is
That's
it.
beautiful.
This is it. And this is the kind of thing that basically our heart is asking for. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
I know life is
Is
making
because
all this shit happen to make, because I'm seeing everything just being put right in place, but there's resistance to
Mhm.
feeling it, I guess. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yes, there's resistance to feeling it. That's all there is. And you can even feel it almost the way I sense it when fear is allowed in the body. It's almost like something birthing because it's like there's this opening and allowing for those sensations to be what they are. And every time we follow a thought, we distort that sensation. So these thoughts are coming about what to do, who he is, what does this mean about you, what about yourself should you take a look at? Those are
Mm.
all tricks. Those are all tricks. There's no self there to look at.
Right.
Okay?
And there's no self here to make a decision on what's going to
That's
happen
right.
in the moment when, if it even, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
it's totally spontaneous. We just make it seem like it's not spontaneous by thinking about it a lot.
Yes. This morning I do the work, I went to Byron Katie School for the work
Yeah.
for 3 years
Yes.
ago, and I've been working with this guy for almost 3 years, 2.5 years now, and every Wednesday and Friday mornings, and I was ready to tell him, I was convinced for the past week I'm not going to do Fridays with him anymore. And we had a
Okay.
beautiful, beautiful session this morning. And I hear myself at the very end, even during it, I'm saying to
Yeah.
myself, how am I going to tell him? How am I going to tell him? At the very end, I said, I'll see you. I'll see you on Friday.
Isn't that funny? Isn't
I
that funny?
I saw the clarity. It was just as it was coming out of my mouth, I'm going, okay, I guess I'm not done with this.
There's something more
There's,
to be
yep,
accomplished through our
'cause
joining.
yep, exactly, because it came right out of my mouth without even a hesitation. And that's
So
reality.
you
You
can
can't
see what
argue
a
with that.
waste of energy. Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah. So
now
you can see
see.
what a waste of
Yes,
yeah.
with your help right now, I see that it is a waste of time, everything that I am saying about the other one. Yes, I see it. Thank you. Thank you very
Hooray!
much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So come back anytime with your hand.
Okay. All right, I
Or
will.
No.
yes.
And it was like every question if you say notice is in this moment and whatever's arising. Like every
Perfect.
question.
Wow, you're good, Ron.
Buddy.
Ron knows what's up. He's got it down. That's it, Ron. It's so simple. Okay. Take this one down. Okay. Okay. So, what do we have next? We have, why does it seem like struggling and the perception of duality is created by the divine for entertainment? Is God cruel? This is an interesting question because it is such a common New Age idea. It's a New Agey idea that God created all this perception, including all the suffering and everything, for his entertainment. He wants to see a bunch of people duking it out like that. Uh, so basically, I've talked about what God is before. You could say that God is love. God is the part of the mind that is not in duality. It's only love. One way of saying it. Um, God isn't entertained one way or another. Could be said that God holds down the reality that is love and doesn't even know about this duality reality that's been created out of fear. God is love. There's nothing cruel about that. What's cruel is the thought that anyone is separate, anyone is guilty, anyone is accountable for their actions. It's pretty cruel. People don't think that's cruel, but you have to justify actions that you didn't even really do. That's pretty harsh. Of course, you never have to do that. It's only a feeling. Like you are the one acting out when consciousness is doing everything. When consciousness is acting through these bodies. And these bodies are also an illusion. They're also made of thought. God actually has nothing to do with it. It's this energy of fear, this energy of feeling separate, that's projecting this. Sure, it's using the energy of God, but it's not God's will. It's the will of the ego to have duality. It's the will of the ego to have bodies that die, illness, attacks on each other, whether physical or emotional or with words. God is love, God's will is love, and we are love. Everything else is a total illusion. It only seems like struggling. Duality is only perceived. It's not one bit real. We are real. And in the moment, we have the power to see through the unreal. That's how it's dissolved. Does anyone have any questions about that? Shane, how exciting. Aloha, Shane. It looks like your microphone isn't on yet. Aloha. All right, Shane typed hi. If you'd like to type your question in, then that's awesome. Oh, just saying aloha. Okay, aloha, Shane. Happy to see you here. I also see Alana and Kathy and Robert. Aloha, everyone.
There it goes. Is it on now?
Hey, Shane.
Hi.
I hear you.
Hi, I love you. The whole family.
Aloha. How fun. All right. Well, let me know if you have any questions. All you have to do is raise your hand over there, okay?
All right.
All right. Okay, so I'm going on to the next question now. Do you live by that which you speak? Someone asked me that today. We were talking on Facebook, and I guess he didn't understand how I could actually live the way that it is. I might not have that right. I don't know. But I thought it was a fun question, so I put it up there. Basically, what I speak is just something that's experience. It's been experienced in this lifetime. It's been experienced, that's all. I don't really have a method for living. In fact, I like to be as natural as possible as far as whatever comes out of my mouth so that it could be seen. A lot of times throughout the day, some things that feel delusional will come out of my mouth, and there's only gratitude for that. Because if I'm trying to live by a certain parameter, then I might not see what's actually held in the subconscious mind. And who knows what might come out. And whatever it is, I'm open to seeing it. So, yeah, basically what I share is what's been experienced, and it's not a life plan, I guess you can say. Yeah, if anybody has any questions about that or wants to know, maybe clarify how that kind of question arises in your mind, that would be helpful. Otherwise, I will be moving on. Okay, here's something I wrote and then a question that came after that. Whatever we seem to do is just an evolving consciousness playing itself out through our bodies. And then someone commented, that's kind of letting people whose actions are disrespectful and sometimes criminal feel like, oh, it's not me, it's just my body acting out. Where is the accountability in that? Well, for one, it's really awesome to let people off the hook. It's a feeling internally of freedom. It's like whatever we hold for a person, saying that they are doing something as an individual, maybe doing something to us or doing something to another person, that's really making ourselves guilty. And that's something that can really be experienced pretty easily from my point of view, actually. I mean, whenever there's an idea that someone is doing something, especially when someone is doing something wrong, that seems wrong, the feeling inside is a clenching, sort of like a clenching. It's not freedom. It's not that free. It's not that free knowing that everything's all right. It's a protective. I would say it's a protective feeling. And then when there's just willingness to see that that person who seems like their actions are something is actually projected from my own mind, I could actually feel how that's being projected through my own body. And all it takes is an awareness of that. All that takes. And that's forgiveness. Immediately, that person becomes innocent, because they are. The person is only a projection of awareness. Everyone is pure awareness, the same source. So when we hold anything for anyone, we cannot be free. It's just one person. It's just one person. It's like, oh no, that person is definitely that. We can't be free until we're willing to forgive. There's no way we can allow one person to be guilty and not be guilty ourselves. And by be guilty, I mean feel guilty, project guilt into the world. Of course, it's impossible, like I said before. It's an impossibility. And that's why it feels like a constriction. It feels like a pressure. It feels difficult. It makes the world feel difficult because it's not true. Nothing but innocence. Nothing. In fact, it's not even innocence, because to have innocence, you kind of have to have guilt to compare to. But when it comes to the world of duality and the mind that's conditioned, there's only innocence. And recognizing that within the normal, everyday things that come up, kind of like what Lori just explained about this issue with a person that seems to be arising in her experience. Within these different experiences, that's where this gets worked out. That's the only place it's going to get worked out. Sitting and praying for enlightenment and praying and all this and to know and to see, great. That's the asking. And then the opportunity arises. And that's what's most often rejected. That's what's most often where the mind goes back into hiding, goes back into, I'm an individual that needs protection from this person who's disrespectful and wrong. I'll tell you what, I get excited about a disrespectful person. I know it's me. It's always me. So I can play with that. It's myself. I can always play with that. And you know it, and the way to playing it with it is willingness to show that love. Because that's really me asking for love. It's not a separate individual asking for love. It's me. It's a confused, deluded aspect of my own self that's not personal one bit. Because remember, we're everything and nothing. It's not one bit personal. But this is in our mind, and it's arising now. And all it's asking for is love. Disrespectful, criminal even. Okay? Criminal even. All it's asking for is love. All it's asking for is this acceptance, and it's acceptance of ourselves. It's a willingness to see through guilty consciousness and welcome our brothers and sisters home. And in that, we are equally welcomed home, where we've never left, welcomed back. We've only shut ourselves out. We've only shut ourselves out with the idea that guilt is real, that guilt is possible. It's possible for anyone to be guilty. We've only shut ourselves out of what some people refer to as the kingdom of heaven. And it absolutely takes welcoming our brothers and sisters home in order for us to find ourselves there. Because all this guilt that first arose in the mind as just an idea is now projected outward into the world. It's hidden within our brothers and sisters and the things and the places, everything that seems like it shouldn't be what it appears to be. And as soon as that's welcomed back, we're back to. There's no more suffering. There's no more illusion of suffering. Let's put it that way. Where is accountability in that? I love that accountability thing. That is just a funny thing that we made up. Being accountable for your actions. I say 100% responsibility, 0 accountability. Because responsibility is in the awareness of what is arising presently, in this instant. That's responsibility. Accountability is the past. Accountability is an illusion. Accountability is saying, I did that, and here's the reason why I did that. Nobody does anything, and that's huge. Nobody does anything. Consciousness is doing it all. It's playing out concepts. So when there's a concept that there is an individual who's accountable for their actions, inevitably, they're going to do stuff that makes them feel guilty. Because even the idea that there's someone to be accountable is already guilt. Because how can anyone be separate from the source? It's not true. It's not possible. It's totally impossible to be separate from the source. Why did you become separate from the source? You should be accountable for that. Okay, so then make up a story that it's for entertainment. Just a thought. No one needs to be accountable for anything. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Responsibility is awareness that nothing is happening as the perception of something happening arises. That's accountability. That's responsibility, I mean. There's no explanation for it. Everyone wants the same thing. Everyone wants to know they're whole. Every single idea that comes up about wanting something in the world is really just a shadow of the same thing. That's why there's nothing to get in the world. That's why there's no decisions to think over and over and over. Because everything is leading toward that. Toward that return to what we already are. It's all an opportunity. Yes, it's an evolving consciousness playing itself out. And it's always changing according to what we take to be true. The evolving consciousness is always receiving whatever feelings we're projecting and making the world out of that. Our bodies play it out. Through that play, we get to see what's held in the subconscious mind. Through that play, we get to choose. And the choice is, are we going to keep creating illusions or return to innocence? It's always the same. Create more illusion or return to innocence? Returning is the simplest thing. There's nothing to really do. It's only a willingness to see. It's that the sensations arising in the body are pointing to something. And there's no need to identify it. Just to feel. Don't have to think about it. Thoughts come and go, that's fine. There's no reason to pursue any of them. And if thoughts are pursued, that's okay. There's no helping that. Once again, there's no one to do it. But just having permission to not have to follow thoughts. Consciousness works that out. Everyone can just relax and enjoy the play. Okay, there's one more question I have written. Anyone else, if anyone else would like to talk with me, please raise your hand. You can also type questions in if you like. Why are you so wise? Where does that come from? Well, there's no one to be wise. There's just wisdom. And let's talk about what that wisdom is. Just wisdom is the understanding that comes from awareness. And it's not something that can be put into words, although pointed to with words. It sees through the wisdom of the world. It sees through the wisdom of what the senses say is so. It sees through what the body's eyes hold as true and the ears hear as true. It knows itself. Let's put it like that. Wisdom knows itself. The conditioned mind doesn't know. And of course, wisdom comes from wisdom. It's willing to share itself. It's not something that's argumentative or defensive. That's one way to know it. It's not something that needs to teach anyone lessons, and that's one way to know it. It doesn't need anything to change. That's another way to know it. It doesn't need anything in the world. It comes through when the self-sense is willing to drop what it thinks to be true. And that usually comes through suffering. Seems like anyone who comes to wisdom dialogues, and myself included, has seen quite a bit of suffering or been through quite a bit of suffering. And maybe sort of kind of feels done with that. And is willing to see what it is that needs to be seen. So it doesn't have to be the norm anymore. That's when a real opening for wisdom comes in. But when there's this sense of fearfulness, then there's a real block toward wisdom. When there's a sense of, I have to get something in the world, I need to manifest something in the world, there's a block. And of course, I'm this one who's not there yet, who has work to do. If you have work to do, if you think you have work to do, then that's going to take precedence over wisdom, the work that you have to do. That's some thoughts that are very powerful. And to allow wisdom, there has to be an opening. There has to be a willingness to see through whatever thoughts say about us. Even the thought I'm there is the same thing. There's just no I like that. To be there or not there. Willingness to see through the separate sense of self. Whatever the ego has to say about the separate sense of self. Where do you get your energy? Well, all energy is from the source. Can't come from anywhere else. It gets shut down or limited, I guess, by thought. But it's all the same. Everyone is powered by the same energy. Every body is powered by the same energy, limited by thought. Everybody is a representation of limitations. Every body is a representation of limitations. And no one is their body. In fact, the body that seems to be our own is no different from anything else that's perceived. That includes other bodies, the ground, the sky, everything. No different. It only seems like it ends at the end of our skin. It seems to end right here. It's only because it seems like it's separate. It's not separate, though. It seems like we can only feel our own body. That's not true. Definitely feel that much more loudly, but everything that can be perceived is a feeling, and it can be sensed in the body. There's willingness to go there. Body's like a sounding board for everything that's perceived. What happens when the body's not limited by thought? Doesn't appear separate. Doesn't appear separate. So nothing's a threat. In fact, nothing's a benefit either. It's just all one. It's not like there's not an ability to still operate in the world, enjoying the play, but not taking the body as separate or any body as separate. There's nothing to fear. It's a totally different experience. Everything's gentle. Everyone is gentle. Every expression is gentle and kind and loving. No matter what. Even if it's meant to be an attack. Even if it's meant to be an attack, it's received as kindness. So I've come to the end of the questions I have written here. If anyone else would like to speak with me, ask a question, write a question, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to sign up and say, ahoy ho. Okay, thank you so much for joining today. This is Wisdom Dialogues with Hope Johnson. This is sponsored by my company Miracle Botanicals, which is essential oils. Really good essential oils. In fact, we just got some blue tansy and it smells delicious. I don't know if you can see that blue, that beautiful blue. Lori says bye. Bye, Lori. Thank you. I love you. See you next week. Aloha and a hui ho.